Take a quick pause. Did you know that over 90% of you watching haven't hit the subscribe button yet? If you're enjoying this video, take a second to subscribe and hit the like button. It helps us bring you more gripping stories every day. Also, we'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments so we can see how far our stories are reaching. Your support really keeps us going. Now, let's jump back into the video. I remember the exact moment I realized I wasn't just a victim. I was the architect of my own revenge. It happened 2 months ago, right after the scheduled power outage in our neighborhood. The night that changed everything. At first, you'd think my wife Ellie was the only villain here. That I was just some unsuspecting husband who stumbled upon her affair with our neighbor, Eduardo. That I was just a fool who overheard their whispers about cashing in on my life insurance by making my death look like an accident. But here's the truth people don't understand. Manipulation isn't always one-sided. Sometimes the person being played is actually the one controlling the board. Let me take you back. That evening, I came home early because my buddy canceled our plans. Work had been a nightmare, finances were tight, and my marriage, well, it was barely holding on by a thread. Frustrated, I rolled my eyes at our still broken garage door opener and entered the house through the side door. The power was out, just as the city had warned days before. My phone battery was nearly dead, so I didn't bother texting Ellie to let her know I was home. I moved through the house, letting my eyes adjust to the dark. And that's when I heard it, Ellie's voice. She wasn't alone. Another voice, lower, familiar. Eduardo, our next-door neighbor. The man who'd been around just long enough for me to notice how Ellie's tone changed when she spoke to him. He'd moved in a year ago, newly divorced, friendly on the surface. I'd lent him tools, had beers with him. And Ellie? She always smiled a little too much when he was around. I stood there in the hallway, barely breathing. My heart pounded, but not from rage. No, something colder settled over me as I listened. Once the insurance pays out for his accident next month, Ellie whispered, her voice dripping with excitement, you and I can finally be together. Then the clinking of wine glasses, a toast. To my death. A strange calm took over me. You'd expect anger, a burst of violent confrontation. But that's not how my mind works. I'm not impulsive. I don't see red. I see opportunity. Instead of storming in, I turned and walked out, sat in my car, let my thoughts settle because Ellie didn't just cheat. She planned to kill me. And Eduardo? He was all in. But here's where it gets interesting. That life insurance policy, it wasn't some random thing Ellie convinced me to get. I increased it to $500,000 months ago, on purpose, because I'd been watching her for a long time. Ellie and I had been married for 6 years, together for 8. We met at a New Year's Eve party. She was electric, the kind of woman who could charm her way into or out of anything. But over time, the cracks started to show, the nagging, the guilt trips, the way she pushed me to make more money, fix the house, improve our lives, while never lifting a damn finger herself. She guilted me for not doing enough while spending every dollar I made. Then, about a year ago, she brought up life insurance. Said it was just in case something ever happened to me. It sounded logical, but something about the way she pushed for it made my stomach turn. So I played along. I got the policy. I let her think she was in control. But behind the scenes, I was preparing. I started stashing money in a separate account, my get-out fund. I watched. I waited. And then Eduardo moved in. Right around the time Ellie started making snide comments about my health, how I should start working out. At first I thought she was just being her usual nagging self. But now? Now I realized she'd been planting the idea that I was unfit. Setting the stage for some tragic, accidental death. She thought she was playing me. But she had no idea who she was dealing with. So back to that night. I came home, heard the whole twisted plan. I circled the block, waited until it was fully dark, then returned. This time, I knocked on the door loudly. Ellie? You there? I called out, my phone flashlight flickering in my hand. Ellie answered, looking flustered. Eduardo stood in the kitchen, stiff as a board. 2 wine glasses sat on the counter, the scent of her expensive perfume hanging thick in the air. Oh, hey! Ellie forced a smile. I didn't expect you home so early. Eduardo cleared his throat. Yeah, man, I was just, checking if you guys had power. Ours is out too. I chuckled. Yeah, sucks. Grab some flashlights, though. You want a beer? Eduardo hesitated. He glanced at Ellie, who gave him a sharp, almost panicked look. Nah, I should get going. He practically ran out the door. Ellie and I sat at the kitchen table by candlelight for the next 2 hours. She kept glancing at her phone, probably texting Eduardo, wondering if I'd heard anything. She was nervous, shaky, and I was having the time of my life watching her squirm. The days that followed were fascinating. She started locking her phone, taking calls in the bathroom, making sudden, unexplained trips out. One night, I found an unmarked bottle in her purse. She claimed it was vitamins, but I knew the scent. Something strong. A sedative, maybe? A way to knock me out before my accident? Funny thing is, I had a fishing trip planned soon. Ellie had been extra interested in it, almost eager, kept asking for details. But that trip? That was my invention, a test. I even got my brothers to agree to back me up if I needed an alibi. Then one afternoon, I checked Ellie's laptop while she was at work. And there it was, her search history. Most lethal, undetectable poisons. How to fake a natural death. Life insurance payout timelines. I actually laughed out loud. She was so cocky, she didn't even bother clearing her search history. So I started documenting everything, screenshots, hidden cameras in the house. I recorded her phone calls, her whispered messages to Eduardo. And no, I didn't go to the police. That would be too easy. Too boring. I wanted to destroy her on my own terms. I wanted to break Eduardo too. That smug bastard who smiled in my face while planning to take my life and my wife. So I played along. I let Ellie believe she was winning. Meanwhile, I planted seeds of doubt between them. At a neighborhood cookout, I casually complimented Ellie in front of Eduardo. Babe, that top you wore last night? Damn, you looked good. Ellie tensed. Eduardo's jaw clenched. I smirked. And then I started messing with our finances. I told Ellie I had a secret gambling problem, that I was racking up online bets. She believed it, because it made me look like an easier target. Meanwhile, I was funneling all our money into my own hidden account. You sure you don't need help? She asked one night, fake concern in her voice. Nah, I said, I'm joining a support group. She smiled, but I saw it, that flicker in her eyes. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about whether I'd die before she could get paid. And that was exactly the fear I was about to use against her. James sat in his car outside his house, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. The guilt was eating him alive. He had spent the afternoon with Rachel again, their connection deepening with every stolen moment. But when he thought of Alex, his best friend since childhood, the shame was unbearable. Alex had always been there for him, through every hardship, every celebration. And yet, James had betrayed him in the worst possible way. He exhaled shakily and finally got out of the car. As he walked inside, his wife Emily greeted him with a warm smile. You're home late, she said, kissing his cheek. James forced a smile. Got caught up at work. Emily nodded, oblivious to the turmoil raging inside him. James wanted to be honest, to confess everything, but he knew it would destroy lives. What had he done? Rachel sat in her bedroom, staring at the mirror. Her reflection showed a woman torn between passion and loyalty. She loved Alex, at least she thought she did. But James made her feel alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. She touched her lips, still tingling from their last kiss. How did this happen? How did they let it go this far? She had convinced herself that it was just a phase, that she would stop before it spiraled out of control. But every time she saw James, her resolve crumbled. The worst part? Alex had no idea. Her husband was kind, loving, and faithful. He trusted her completely, and here she was deceiving him. Rachel ran a hand through her hair, fighting back tears. She had to end this. She had to. Alex wasn't stupid. He noticed the change in Rachel, how she was distracted, how her phone was always turned away from him. And James. James had been distant. Something wasn't right. One evening, as they sat together watching TV, Alex casually asked, "Have you been talking to James much?" Rachel stiffened. "Not really. Why?" Alex studied her face. "I don't know. He's been acting weird. I thought maybe you knew what was up." Rachel forced a laugh. "Maybe he's just busy." Alex didn't push, but the seed of doubt had been planted. He trusted Rachel. He trusted James. But something in his gut told him not to ignore the signs. The next day, James and Rachel met at a small cafe on the outskirts of town. "This has to stop," Rachel said, her voice trembling. James nodded. "I know." But neither of them moved. As they sat there, deep in conversation, a familiar voice interrupted them. "Hey, James." "Rachel?" They turned to see Alex standing by the entrance. Rachel's heart nearly stopped. James's stomach twisted in knots. Alex smiled, walking toward them. "What are you two doing here?" Rachel forced a laugh. "Oh, I ran into James, and we were just catching up." Alex glanced between them, his expression unreadable. Huh. Small world. Rachel's hands trembled under the table. Had he seen something? Had he heard something? James swallowed hard. They were playing a dangerous game, and Alex was getting closer to the truth. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The moment he saw James and Rachel together at the cafe, a strange unease settled in his chest. Rachel's reaction had been too forced, her smile a little too quick. And James barely looked him in the eye. That night, as Rachel lay beside him, seemingly asleep, Alex stared at the ceiling, his mind racing. Was he overthinking, or was something truly happening behind his back? Rachel knew she was walking on thin ice. Seeing Alex at the cafe had nearly sent her into a panic. She had promised herself she would end things with James, but every time she looked into his eyes, she felt herself slipping deeper. But the guilt was suffocating her. As she sat at the dinner table with Alex, watching him eat, she felt an overwhelming sense of shame. He didn't deserve this. Yet, despite knowing it was wrong, she wasn't sure she could stop. James was spiraling. The weight of the secret was crushing him. Every time Alex called or texted, he felt like a traitor. The close call at the cafe had been a wake-up call. He had to make a decision, end things with Rachel or come clean and face the consequences. But could he really walk away from her? Could he really look Alex in the eyes and pretend like nothing happened? James gripped his head, feeling trapped in a web of his own making. Late one night, Alex sat in his car outside James' house. Something inside him told him to dig deeper. His heart pounded as he picked up his phone and called Rachel. "Hey," she answered sleepily. "Where are you?" Alex asked, his voice calm but firm. Rachel hesitated. "In bed. Why?" Alex exhaled slowly. She was lying, because from where he sat he could see the light in James' living room, and through the curtains he saw the shadow of his wife. Alex's hands trembled as he lowered his phone. His wife had just lied to him without hesitation, without remorse. Through James's living room window he could see two figures, Rachel and James. His chest tightened, a mix of rage and devastation washing over him. He wanted to burst inside, demand answers, but something held him back. He needed to be sure. He needed proof. Instead, he pulled out his phone and hit record, capturing the moment. He couldn't hear their conversation, but their body language said everything. The closeness, the tension, the way James reached for Rachel's hand. Alex clenched his jaw. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a betrayal. Inside, Rachel sat on James' couch, her heart pounding. "This isn't right," she whispered. "Alex is my husband." James ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident on his face. "I know, Rachel, but we can't deny what we feel." She shook her head. "It doesn't matter. We've crossed too many lines. We need to stop before we destroy everything." James exhaled deeply. I don't want to lose you. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. But I can't keep lying. Alex is a good man. He doesn't deserve this. James nodded reluctantly. Then we end it. Tonight. The confrontation. Just as Rachel wiped her eyes, a knock sounded at the door. Both of them froze. James hesitated before walking over and opening it, only to come face to face with Alex. Rachel's stomach dropped. Alex stepped inside, his expression unreadable. He held up his phone. I saw everything. Rachel's breath hitched. Alex, don't. He cut her off, his voice eerily calm. Just tell me the truth. How long? James swallowed hard. It wasn't supposed to happen. Alex turned to Rachel, his eyes searching hers. How long? Tears streamed down Rachel's face. She couldn't bring herself to speak. Alex let out a bitter chuckle. That's all I needed to know. He turned on his heel and walked out, leaving Rachel and James standing in stunned silence. Days passed and Rachel's calls to Alex went unanswered. When she returned home, she found his things missing. A single note was left on the kitchen counter. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. Rachel's knees buckled. She had lost him. James tried reaching out, but Alex wanted nothing to do with him either. Their friendship, decades in the making, was shattered beyond repair. Rachel had followed her heart, but in doing so, she had destroyed everything she had. And now she had to live with the consequences. Months passed. Alex never returned. He filed for divorce, cutting Rachel and James out of his life completely. Rachel tried to move on, but guilt followed her everywhere. She and James no longer spoke, not after they realized they weren't meant to last. The affair that had felt so consuming, so impossible to resist, had crumbled into nothing but regret. And Alex? He rebuilt himself. Slowly but surely he healed. But one thing was certain, he would never trust the same way again. What do you think? Do you think Alex made the right decision by walking away? Should he have tried to work things out with Rachel, or was the betrayal too deep? Who do you think is more to blame, Rachel or James? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload.